Good evening, everybody. It is the Safety and Sportswriter with Knoxville, Nate, and Big Joe's. We get ready to talk to you about the world of sports and NFL all together tonight as we get ready for the divisional playoffs this weekend with four exciting matchups. Well, one, we're going to see a lot of young quarterbacks and some upstarts in the Giants and Jags, some expected people like the Chiefs and the Bengals and the Bills. And the Eagles, if Jalen Hurts is ready to play, they were the best team in football for most of the year. So we have a lot to look into this weekend. Oh, I forgot the Dallas Cowboys. Oops.
Sure did.
Well, it's kind of, a Freudian slip. But I'll tell you one thing. Before we even get going, I know we got a lot to get to, but it does feel good to have three teams from the division that the team I root for, the Giants, are in after how bad that division's been for 3-4 years. To have three teams in the division finals, an upswing, because during the 80s that was the best division in football, I think, and now maybe they're on an upswing where they can at least be competitive and not be the NFC least anymore. So,
I haven't heard anybody use that term in at least in a year or two. And I got to be honest, I think it's one of, if not the best division. Definitely was this year.
Yeah, so we got a lot to get to tonight. We'll start off like you said before we were just talking before we came on the air. Let's talk about the upheavals in some of these teams. Maybe overreaction, maybe had to be done. A lot of coordinators are falling on their swords this weekend for the team and taking some bits and pieces. And we'll just talk about what happened this week. Byron Leftwich, 2 years removed from being the next hot commodity at head coaching and a Super Bowl victory and what he got out of Tom Brady squeezing out what's left in his career. And now he's the fall guy for all that went wrong with the Bucs. We'll start there. What do you think about that?
It's a freaking joke, man. You're telling me that Byron Leftwich all of a sudden doesn't know how to coach? He was the hottest candidate, or one of the two hottest candidates last year, besides obviously the Dallas defensive coordinator. He was one of the hottest candidates. He interviewed for 4, maybe 5 different jobs that were open. And, could have taken one, I think. I think he probably got at least one offer, in my opinion. And now he's a bum. It's a joke. Todd Bowles is just not a good head coach. He showed it in New York. He's okay, but he is what he is. He's about a 500 coach. And for a team that, had Super Bowl aspirations, it was well underperformed. And somebody had to go down. And they let Todd Bowles stick around, I guess. And he had to fire somebody, so I guess he picked Byron Leftwich. But I still think Byron's going to get another job pretty quick.
Well, and where is this from? Bruce Arians suddenly retires. They promote Todd Bowles, which you think that Arians went to bat for him.
Yeah.
And now it's Byron Leftwich. Is Tom Brady running the team, or are they doing these things in hopes of keeping him in town? And is it worth the hassle to keep a 45-year-old quarterback who, he may have set records for the most throws in a year. He may have, rescued them with a couple of late comebacks, but they were an under 500 team with the GOAT as their quarterback and as a leader with his tantrums on the sidelines and other things like that. We roast Brady for not being more of a leader with the young wide receivers he has up north. But meanwhile,
you mean Rodgers?
Rodgers, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Say. But we roast him. But meanwhile, Brady's allowed to be petulant on the sideline, screaming at his offensive linemen, screaming at his wide receivers, breaking equipment. And the funny thing is, I'm not a big fan of his. Is OBJ punches out a net and gets fined and killed in the press. And Tom he's such a competitor.
Yeah. No, he just wants to win. I'm like, well, if he wants to win, he should play better. I really think this was the worst season I've ever seen out of Tom Brady. And I'm not just saying that because I hate him.
Yes.
I'm just being honest. Even the games they won, they had no business winning, and they were meaningless games against bad teams. But he put together a touchdown at the end, and it was more in a lot of instances, especially that Saints game, where the head coach of the other team fucked up instead of Tom Brady, saving the day. I know that was the headline the next day. Brady comes back, but it was more of a collapse in some of those teams. The Seahawks, for example, over in London, the Saints game. I mean, we could go on and on and on. The Panthers a couple weeks ago. He was not good. And I watched that team all year long, and we said the same thing over and over again. Yeah, they might get into the playoffs because they are in the worst division in the NFL. Somebody's got to go, and none of those teams wanted to. So we were like, he might get in. I said, but he's going out the first game they play against a decent team. And we look what happened. It was a bombshell. I mean, they got their asses kicked. They got their asses kicked. I mean, the only points they got were, late in the second half after the Cowboys were just in prevent defense and given up, which was, where he got his stats all year long. And other than that, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't get across the 50. And, it's not Brady's fault. It's Byron Leftwich.
No, I mean, it's like, unfortunately, it happens with most quarterbacks that, especially great ones, they're known for early in their career being able to make players better around them. Later on in their careers, they need better players around them because they can't do that anymore. And it's apparent now that if you don't give him all aces in his hand, that he can't make it work. I'm sorry, he just doesn't have that. And the other thing is, as Troy Aikman called it this week before the game, he said the most unathletic quarterback in football. And he is. He wasn't athletic when he was young, and he's not getting more athletic as he gets older. You're in a game now where you have to be able to, as they say, extend the plays, go off script, do all these other things. And unfortunately for him, the script didn't work. And I'm sorry, I've never been a Byron Leftwich fan. I've never been a big fan of his, but Tom Brady is supposedly doesn't need that kind of coaching, right? He's supposed to be as smart as the guy who's coaching him, supposedly, according to all the people saying. So why is it Byron Leftwich's fault?
Yeah, well, there's blame to go around all over the place. Brady shoulders some of it. Does Byron Leftwich shoulder some of it? Probably, but we both know the one variable that's changed is the head coach. Yeah. And Bruce Arians is no longer there, and since he's left, that team has not looked the same. And you know what? Tom Brady didn't play one down on defense. Right. And for whatever reason, that defense has taken a step back, big time. And I don't think it's the defensive coordinator's fault. I just think it's the overall scheme, it's the overall game plan, it's the overall management of the team, and it's not as good. And I like Todd Bowles. I think he's a great guy and a good football coach, but I think he's more of a coordinator instead of a head coach, and we've seen that so far.
Hey, the whole thing is sometimes they have to come to that realization. Wade Phillips finally came to that realization, and finally, it improved his reputation as he got older. Is the fact of the matter is he realized I'm better off as a defensive coordinator. Why do I want to be a head coach and take all that crap?
Yeah, no, it's true. And some people are just, they're better suited to be a coordinator.
Or turnaround offense. There's a bunch of examples out there.
Dennis Allen. I mean, he's more of a defense coordinator than a head coach. That's been proven time and time again. But let's talk about that defense in that game. Dak Prescott, 143.3 rating, 4 touchdown passes. He ran for another one. This is a guy who could not get a first down or throw the ball to his own team against the Commandos a week ago, and now he looks like the Super Bowl MVP. That's your Bucs defense for you. So there's plenty of blame to go around. But I just think it's interesting how these head coaches save their own jobs by stabbing their best friends in the back and making them fall on the sword, like in Tampa Bay, and also, to be honest, in Baltimore. I mean, look, Harbaugh, he fired the defense coordinator last year. Of course, Wink goes to New York, wrong, and has them still playing, unlike the Ravens. And then this year he fires Greg Roman. And do I think that Greg Roman, made some mistakes and had some flaws in his offensive play calling? Oh yeah. It sucked, but overall, it comes down to the head coach. The head coach has to say, overrule bad play calls. He's got to say that. Yeah, he's got to be the guy. And you don't tell me that John Harbaugh's not listening to the play calls. He's the guy. And last year he fires the D coordinator. This year he fires the offense coordinator. Who's he going to fire next year?
Well, I think he's coming down to. I think there's definitely a power struggle in Baltimore. I think it's going to come down in his off season. Maybe that do you want to keep Lamar because it seems like Lamar wants out of there.
Yeah, I don't blame
And
him.
maybe his time with maybe he's sick of waiting for Harbaugh and the GM to give him some weapons, and
Yeah,
maybe
I
the
don't blame
time has
him.
come for. I like Harbaugh. I do. I think he's done a great job, but he's been around for a long time.
Yeah, and he's worn out his welcome in Baltimore. I'm sorry, but that team is not play. It's just like the Buccaneers. That team is not playing like they used to play. Just the whole thing. It's just people used to fear the black bird, and they don't
Yeah.
anymore because it's just not the same level of football that we used to see. And that the clock mismanagement, the in game decision making, the halftime tweaks, all of it has been piss poor.
The
And
late giveaways of games.
yeah, just handing over leads time and time again, and losing close games that they should win. And it falls back on the head coach, and he just keeps saving his job by firing his buddies. And you would think someday that he would be held accountable for what's going on in Baltimore.
Well, yeah, and I don't know of a guy that's going to be a replace for him. There's a lot of openings, but the fact of the matter is that's going to be a tough division next year.
Oh yeah,
Kenny Pickett proved to be a good quarterback. I don't know what's going on with Tomlin. There's apparently some kind of a personal issue he's dealing with right now. Hopefully, it's nothing big, so it doesn't affect his future. But you get the Bengals, who we've seen. I know Taylor isn't the best coach in the world, but the team keeps going.
no, they win in spite of him.
And then you got who knows what the Browns are going to be next year. Deshaun Watson will have played at least this year. If he can get a full off season, can he get back to where he was 4 years ago when he was the hot commodity in Texas? Could be. He's still basically a young man. So you got a lot of that going on. And then of course we got San Diego, where the offense took the blame for blowing a 27-point lead.
Yeah, they have 27 points at halftime, and they fired the offensive coordinator and then fired the quarterbacks coach, who's groomed Justin Herbert into one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
Well, and I won't complain. I won't say that it wasn't some of their fault. They should have run the ball. I get that, but as you just pointed out, where's that head coach going? No, run the freaking ball.
Yeah, you call it time. If they're not, first off, if you're not listening to the play calls, that's your own fault. And second off, if you don't call a timeout and walk over there and go, what the F are you doing? Hand the ball to Austin Eckler and get some clock down. Run. They should have ran the ball just to mix up the run and the pass a little bit. The play calling was horrible, but you are the head coach. He's made some dumb decisions all year long. He's lost a bunch of games he should have never lost. And, I defended him for a long time, as you know, on this show. But I got to be honest, I watched that whole game, and I was just like, this is one of the worst coached games I've ever seen. And he deserves the blame for it.
Yeah, he does. And, in Jacksonville, it was a nice look for Trevor Lawrence coming back, especially after how bad he looked in the first half. My God, I felt sorry for the kid at that point. I was like, oh, my God, he looked like he was way back to his rookie year again. And then, in the second half, they caught a little fire. That coming out and scoring early. And then, like we said, the play calling just kind of worked in and gave them more and more chances to get back. And they made it happen. So
the defense was horrible, too. I mean, everything that they were doing in the first half that was working, they seemed to go away from in the second half. I mean, the blitzing, the coverages that they were running, everything that worked in the first half, they went away from it in the second half. And it was very hard to watch.
Did you, when you bring that up, it was funny. You didn't watch the Manning cast during the Cowboy game, did you?
No.
First of all, it was must-watch TV because they were funny as hell. And
I just don't like Peyton Manning. That's why I can't watch it.
He was funny. He was funny. He was like when the field goal kicker kept missing the extra points, he was beside himself. But then he starts going, halftime adjustments. That's the biggest myth in football history because I don't remember any adjustments we really made. So they were pretty funny. But I mean, when you think about it, in terms of San Diego, maybe they made adjustments they shouldn't have been making. Just stick to what you're doing.
Yeah, no, if you're winning the game 27-0 or 27-7, you don't have to change a whole lot of what you're doing. Just keep doing what you're doing. That's common sense. But
until the fourth quarter. Hopefully by then you're up by 40 or 50 and you just sit there and go, now just sit on it.
No,
and play a shell.
Somehow I knew they were going to lose that game. I mean, even when they were up 27-0, I'm like, they should be up like 40-0 right now. They've gotten the ball handed the ball inside the 30 like 4 times.
Right.
And they've only got this many points. I'm like, this is not good. I just didn't feel good about it the whole time.
Yeah, you don't want to keep them hanging around. And now let's touch a little bit about the Jets firing their offensive coordinator. As we talked about coming on the air, living up in the New York area, even now, I love the one thing as a Giant fan, everything's been understated with the Giants. Very quiet, not a lot of overblown stuff. Everybody's talking about the Jets because, of course, that makes news is bitching and how these guys want to bring Brady to town, which I don't get at all because you're just asking me to get your heart broken. I mean, the Jets are cursed when they go out and they brought in Boomer Esiason. He tried his best. He couldn't do it. They brought in Brett Favre. He tries his best. He can't do it. Vinny Testaverde. Neil O'Donnell. They go and get these quarterbacks from these other big successful teams, and for some reason they just die in the Meadowlands with the green on. So I agree they have to go out and find some kind of a quarterback, Derek Carr, Garoppolo, something along that line.
They're not getting Tom Brady. It's not going to happen. I mean, Tom Brady's either going to go back to the Buccaneers or he's going to go to the Raiders. I mean, that's just the two options that are available to him right now, and there's no way in my mind that he sets foot in the Meadowlands. It's just not going to happen.
But as we said about now, here's a perfect example. LaFleur gets fired, or as they say up here, they allowed him to go pursue
mutually part ways. That's right. My favorite.
Yeah, we want to give him. We feel we're holding him back, so we'll let him go somewhere else. But I mean, it's like, come on, he had no quarterbacks. I mean, Mike White's a nice story, but as it shows up, Mike White looks good for a week or two, but then you start to see Mike White and why he was an afterthought when coming into the league. Joe Flacco is 5 years past his expiration date. Zach Wilson never should have been drafted where he was, and it's proved out to be a bad choice. And you saw when he had Breece Hall early in the year, when he could run the ball consistently, what kind of offense the Jets have. They lose their best running back, and they can't do anything after that. And this poor young coach, who I think you never know. We'll never know. Hopefully he gets a job somewhere else in a second chance.
I think he will.
We will never, ever know what he could have done if Breece Hall had stayed healthy. I think they would have been a totally different team, at least coming into the second half of the year.
Could not agree more. I think that this team took a nosedive as soon as Breece Hall left, which just opened you up to the everyone knew the quarterback position was just garbage, and it was garbage all the way up and down. It has been for the last 6 or 7 years up there, maybe longer. And they've got to get that fixed first and foremost. And they've got 0 right now. I mean, you say you've got 3 quarterbacks, that means you have none. They have to get rid of all those dudes. They have to bring somebody in that can get the ball down the field. And I don't know who it is as of yet, but it definitely was not the offensive coordinator's fault. I mean, the fact, if you look back at what he did when they had Breece Hall, it was genius. I mean, he rode the hot hand. He had the run game work into perfection. Then he just, used play action to throw it when they absolutely had to. And they were winning football games when they shouldn't really have been winning them. So I think he'll land on his feet. I think somebody else, obviously, that name is pretty well known in the NFL right now with his brother coaching in Green Bay and doing a really good job up there. I think he'll get a job real quickly. And I'm excited to see what he does if he actually gets on a team that has somebody that can throw the ball more than 15 yards.
Well, it's like, he was able to run the 49er type offense that he was raised in. Run the ball first, establish the run, establish the line of scrimmage, play action, work it in, and you use the crossing routes, you use that. You hold the ball, and then if you have a shot downfield every once in a while, you take it. But you don't. It's all about possession and consistently moving the sticks, and that's what he did. So
Yeah, I
we will
mean,
see.
Brees Hall was going to be the rookie of the year without a doubt if he doesn't rip his knee up. So I just hope he comes back and is as effective. And I'm interested to see who they hire there, but it's really not going to matter who they hire there if they don't get the quarterback position fixed because they need somebody to come in and play right away.
And while we're on it, we'll go a little bit up the coast here to New England, who I guess Belichick comes as close to admitting it was a mistake to not go and get a real offensive coordinator this year. He still made his way through the season, almost made it to the playoffs, but Mac Jones was not Mac Jones. He struggled a little bit. There was some dissension on the sidelines. You saw, for the first time in over 20 years since he's been with the Patriots, where it looked that Belichick overplayed his hand.
Yeah, no, I think he did. I mean, I don't know. It was kind of learning on the job for Matt Patricia. I don't know whether or not, he could ever be a good play caller. But let's be honest, there were moments where this offense looked pretty decent without really having a big-time playmaking receiver. Bailey Zappi came in a couple times and had this offense slamming. I think there's some blame to go around to Patricia and for Belichick for making that decision. And then also, I don't think Mac Jones played it good. And I think they need a wide receiver on this team to open it up. The tight ends have started to play good. They've got some decent running backs. But this receiver core as a whole is trash.
Yeah. I mean, in the days of, Edelman, Hogan, and Amendola, aren't going to work right now. I mean,
hell, I take Edelman over anybody they have on that roster right now.
Well, yeah, exactly. But let's face facts: the three little Smurfs back when they were winning championships, they were able to get away with it. But right now, they need somebody, like you said, to stretch the field a little bit and help this young quarterback out. So,
Devontae Parker, who couldn't do anything in Miami, all of a sudden is their starting wide receiver. Tyquan Thornton probably is the best, most talented receiver they have. But, Jacoby Myers, I was never quite as high on as some other people. Kendrick Bourne, maybe a 3. Nelson Aguilar can usually get open. He just can't get open and catch the football. So, that's a problem.
Yeah. Yes, it is. But the whole thing is, I think, I think what we've seen over the last 3 years is Belichick is still Belichick, but he can't afford the mistakes he used to make because the division has gotten so much better.
Yeah, no, that's the biggest thing to me is I don't think that Belichick is how forgotten how to coach. I just think, the Jets are a little bit better. The Dolphins are much, much improved. And the Bills obviously are one of the best, the top 3 teams in the NFL.
So, I mean, yeah, so it's not as easy for him to ride to a 5-1, 6-0 division record and then, get his team ready for the playoffs anymore.
Yeah, they were guaranteed a playoff spot for 15 years because the rest of the division was horrible. And that's just not the case anymore. You got to win a wild card position, which is a lot more different.
And I did not want to pile on a little bit here, but for all you Jet fans who think that Rex Ryan did such a good job, see how easy it was when he was coaching the Jets for Belichick to make the playoffs?
Yeah.
It was like, come on. So anyways, let's go back to the last weekend. We had the playoffs beginning. We'll start out with Monday night, which was the crowning, and I don't want to say crowning, but it looks like the Dallas Cowboys are coming into the playoffs ready to make some kind of a statement. While Brady showed he shouldn't have even been there. That was, it's funny how at least Seattle stuck around for a half with the 49ers. But the first game of the weekend and the last game of the weekend were the most uncompetitive. And we'll start with, the Cowboys. Do we take the Cowboys seriously now?
I think you definitely have to take them more seriously. I mean, do I think they're going to win the Super Bowl? I've got to see them be more consistent start, thinking that way. But let's be honest. I mean, they played unbelievable in the first half. They were only up 18-0 because of missed extra points and 2-point conversions. They obviously should have been up by a little bit more, but then they could have folded in the second half and let Tommy get back in the game, and they didn't. I'm impressed with this team, and this team has a chance to continue winning the playoffs because A, they've got a good defense. B, they've got a good run game with Tony Pollard and Mixon and Zeke. They can get yardage on the ground. Plus, Dak can run the football if he has to. So that's key, is that they've got this defense, they've got this running game. If Dak can, get some good passes off too, then they're really dangerous. And this was a complete night and day, like I mentioned earlier, the broadcast, that this was night and day, Dak, between Washington and then Monday night. So if he could just be closer to Monday night than the Commandos game, they got a real shot.
Well, and the thing you got to wonder is, this Micah Parsons had me a little bit worried for the last 4 or 5 weeks. Not that I worry about the Cowboys at all, but he had not been himself, and he was himself on Monday night.
Yeah, he's legit. He's one of the top 3 defensive players in the league, in my opinion. Maybe the best, honestly, by the way that he can change the game. I mean, I look at Nick Bosa, I look at him, and that's probably TJ Watt. Those 3 guys are difference makers that can change the whole game from the defensive side of the ball, which you really can't do anymore with the way the game is called and the way that it's officiated. It's hard to make a big difference in the game from the defense, and those 3 guys can do it. Micah Parsons is a badass. He can play linebacker. He can play defensive end. He can be just an edge guy. He can play on the line and help with the run. There's really nothing this guy can't do. Even then they ask him himself, what position could you not play on defense? They're like, it probably could be a corner. He's like, oh, I'd be a corner. He's like, I'd jam him at the line. They'd never even get out in the route. And I agree with them. He probably could, man. There's nothing this guy can't do. And they just need to build around him and use him correctly, and they can stop pretty much anyone.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the statement coming out of there is they're a team now you got to be worried about, especially they're going out to San Francisco. We're going to get to that later on in the broadcast, but
we got to talk about Kellen Moore too. I mean, there was some just terrific play calls. We talk about Greg Roman and the Chargers and Byron Leftwich and all the guys, LaFleur, all the guys that may have made some mistakes play calling. Kellen Moore was fantastic, and I've kind of wondered whether he was as good as some people make him out to be, but he called a hell of a game on Monday and really, really did a great job.
Yeah, but not to be the devil's advocate here, but I mean, as we alluded to earlier, I mean, it's like Kellen Moore. You see, this is where the Cowboys drive you nuts, because you go, is Dak as bad as he looked in Washington, or as good as he looked at Tampa Bay? Or where was this offense where was his play calling against Washington when he's a genius today? And we talked.
I just think they just played horrible. I mean, Kellen Moore certainly wasn't telling Dak to throw it to Washington. But I mean, he was doing it
on the same thing as and I don't know, I don't know the play call, but they get away with the interception. It was called back, and then they throw the exact same pass on the next play, and it goes for pick 6. I mean. Like I said, this is the Jerry Jones Cowboys. We've watched this with Romo. We've watched it ever since the team they had put together by Jimmy Johnson, were picked off or retired or anything else. Ever since that era, this is the Cowboys. Whether it be Parcells or whether it's Mike McCarthy, I'm not even going to bring in the other ones they had up like Dave Campo and those guys because those were ridiculous. But I mean. In Garrett, it's like they sit there and you go, oh, aha, this is the Cowboys. And then all of a sudden next week, and I know it's going to be a tough game against the 49er defense, but are they going to go back to being same old Cowboys? They're out.
I don't know. We'll find out. That's what I say. I mean, they've got to be a little bit more consistent. But let's be honest, man. I mean, it's not like they've sucked all year. They won 12 football games. They've won 6. They played 9 playoff teams, and they have 6 victories out of those 9 games versus playoff teams. So you think about it, I mean, that's like winning 6 out of 9 in the playoff structure. I mean, that's pretty good. So I think, we get critical of them sometimes because they're on TV every single weekend. If they fuck up, if they have a bad week, everybody knows it because they're always on primetime and they're all everybody talks about. But, being honest, they've won 12 games and they've looked pretty good most of the time. They've had some issues with Dak throwing the ball the other way, but they're a pretty good football team, and I just hope they can keep it consistent week to week, like they need to get further.
I hope not, but that's because that's the Giant fan in me. But the thing is that they're judged like the Yankees are judged in baseball. Okay, yeah, they won 100 games, but what are they going to do in the playoffs? So we'll see. Next, we'll go to the Bengals, who Joe Burrow did not look great against the Ravens. And they get away with a 99-yard fumble return for a touchdown to win the game. Survive and advance is the name of the game in the playoffs. It's not always about being artistic, but they got to go to Buffalo, and if they play like they played against the Ravens, that ain't gonna shine up there in Buffalo.
No, not even close. I mean, the Bengals got really helped out, in my opinion, in this game. I mean, A, the play call was horrible. B, 9 times out of 10, they blow that play dead, so the quarterback doesn't get hurt. They also missed a blatant block in the back where the one guy that could have possibly tackled Sam Hubbard gets shoved in the back, 50 yards away from the ref. I mean, I know how sometimes refs miss calls because there's 22 guys packed in a tight space. They were 50 yards away from anyone. They shoved down the one guy from the back who could have possibly caught him, and there's no flag. So, they did get helped out. But as you said, all that matters is to win and move on. But I got to be honest, I don't feel real comfortable with the Bengals going up to win in Buffalo, especially missing 3 offensive linemen. I think that's going to be tough. I mean, Joe's done it before where he's overcome no protection, but they got to run the ball some in order to beat Buffalo. And I just don't know if the 3 backups can do it.
But there's some weirdness going on. I mean, you got Buffalo that's being inspired by their man coming back and showing up at their facilities, and I think it's Buffalo. I'm hard pressed, and I like Joe Burrow. I root for Joe Burrow, but I'm hard pressed to see him being able to go in there and get it done. But at least if anything, it proved this year. That maybe the Super Bowl year wasn't just a fluke, and this Cincinnati team is a team that is going to be around for a while.
Oh, definitely. I think so, man. When you have Joe Burrow, you got a shot. I just question whether they can win this week, but I think they're going to be set for a number of years, especially with those young, badass wide receivers. They've got some good young offensive linemen that they're trying to morph into, perennial Pro Bowlers, and they're going to get more. So I think the Bengals are going to be good for a long time. Especially
next,
who they got.
All right, now we'll go down to my Giants, or I don't want to say my Giants. I don't want to sound like that, but the Giants taking out the Vikings. Before we get into the game itself, I started with it last week, and to all the Giant fans around here, to all the people who have their talk shows, to all the media, I want to give you all a collective finger for saying that Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley were wasted draft choices. Because if it wasn't for those 2 guys and the new coach and staff, the Giants would not be sitting here. And now everybody is singing the praises of Daniel Jones when they wanted to run him out of town the last 2 years. And we were even critical of him. I'll say we were critical of him at the end of last year because he couldn't stay in the field. But it shows with some good coaching. And, the funny thing now is there are some people up here quietly giving Dave Gettleman a little bit of credit for some of the draft choices he brought in here. Yes, he swung and missed hard on a couple of them. And yes, he was obnoxious. And he swung and missed hard on his coaching picks. But the fact of the matter is he left some building blocks for Shane and for Brian Dable to start with. There's still a lot of holes to fill, but it was good to see the Giants win a victory on the road. And Matt, and before I get to turn it over to you here, that was such a bogus roughing the passer call that helped Minnesota.
That was a joke.
He landed, the quarterback landed on top of him.
Yeah. That was absolute junk. I saw that and I couldn't believe it. I mean, I think it was the USC Leonard Williams.
Yeah.
You couldn't have done that any better than he did. I thought that was an absolute joke. And yes, we were critical of Daniel Jones at times, but I never heard once me or you say he can't do it. I never heard that once. We both liked what we saw. We said we saw flashes. We said we wanted to see more consistency. We never said get rid of him. We never said he can't do it. We said we need to see it moving forward. And he's gotten better and better and better. And finally, they got a damn coach to help him out. And he looked amazing. And I was so happy for him. He ran the ball. He threw the ball. He did everything he needed to do. And, that play where he kind of handed it behind his back to Saquon Barkley. If Patrick Mahomes had done that, it'd be on SportsCenter 25 times over and over and over and over and over again. That's all we would see all week long. Daniel Jones does it. I can't even find it on the internet. Kudos to them, man. I think about if Gettleman had drafted a wideout they could possibly use. They'd be winning the Super Bowl this year. I mean, Isaiah Hodgins was their best wide receiver, 8 catches, 105 yards. He's awesome. He kind of reminds me of a tight end, to be honest. He's a big dude. He's kind of like a Evan Ingram that can actually catch. And then Darius Slayton, man, finally has a pretty decent game and then drops the game-winning pass that hits him. I mean, that was one of Daniel Jones' best throws all night.
Yeah. And
it hits him right in the hands, and he drops it. I actually kind of felt bad for the guy. But the Giants need to get some wide receivers, and they need to get them fast. They need wideouts just as bad as New York Jets need a quarterback.
But I love about Dable? He yells at Slayton, or he shows his frustration, but then he goes over and talks to the kid.
Yeah.
We're going to need you. This isn't over yet. Don't get out of this game. That's old school coaching. That's what brings out the best in you. You got to be able. He's honest with his players. I think the best thing about Brian Dable, he's not afraid to tell these guys, this is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
I think he learned that from Saban. He learned it from working with Belichick. Is if you don't tell these guys what's expected of them, how do you expect them to perform?
Yeah, they need to know what you want them to do and what you expect them to do. And he's done an amazing job with that. I mean, let's be honest, the Giants still have a couple of holes, but he's managed to patch it up and find a way to win football games that they would have no business winning last year. So I give him a ton of credit and, rose to the occasion, man. I mean, everything was there for the Giants to just fold. Hey, we made the playoffs, pretty good first season for our new coach. Daniel Jones played pretty good. Let's go into the offseason and feel good about ourselves. They could have easily done that, but they didn't do that. They focused 100% on winning this game and went out and beat a good Minnesota team who's been very good all year in one-score games. In fact, they were 11-0 going into that battle with the Giants. And for the Giants to come away and win a 7-point game, that was the first time Minnesota's lost a one-score game all year long.
To talk about that side of the ball or that side of the field, is this a referendum on Kirk Cousins? Is this the Kirk Cousins resume really pretty good during the year to very good during the year? Come the playoffs, this is what he is.
I don't think so. I honestly didn't think he was that bad. I mean, he was 31 of 39 for 273 yards and 2 touchdowns, no picks. He wasn't horrible. They scored 24 points. Their defense just, came back to finally bite them. They haven't been able to really stop anybody all year long, and they couldn't stop the Giants at all. And, could he have played better? Yeah. But I'm not going to sit here and say a guy that won 13 games sucks. He played pretty well all season. I mean, I want to see more out of him, obviously, in the playoffs, but I'm not putting this whole game on him.
No. But the last play,
60 yards rushing, 60 yards.
Yeah. But the last play of the game, that was a stupid throw. I mean,
yeah,
that was like, okay, who cares if you get intercepted now? It's like you got no timeouts left. I understand maybe he thinks that Hawkinson, if he breaks one tackle, but I mean, it's not just he has to break one tackle; he has to then get another 7 yards after breaking the tackle. I mean, you got to
No,
throw
I
that ball
agree.
downfield.
I agree. It wasn't ideal final drive, but when did their defense get a stop all day long? I mean, they really didn't. I think the Giants punted like twice all day. So when you can never get off the field and you can never give your offense a chance to catch up, and you put a ton of pressure on them to score every single time, it can catch up with you.
And then we got the first game, which was the Bills Miami. Miami doing a lot better than I thought they would, because you're starting Skylar Thompson. But what was your impressions of that game?
I was blown away by the Dolphins' performance. I mean, I did not expect that. They never gave up. They had a tremendous game plan. Still been kind of iffy on this guy all year long, but after that coaching job, I've got to give credit where it's due. I mean, to have a very good opportunity to beat the Bills in Orchard Park with your third string rookie quarterback who's not Brock Purdy. It was impressive, and they didn't even really run the ball that well. I think they ran for like 42 yards all day long, and they still hung around till the very end. So I was very impressed with the Dolphins' way they showed up, the way that the game plan was put together. It was impressive to me. And 34-31, I mean, yeah, they lost, but to me, that was kind of a victory for the Dolphins. Not on the final ledger, but to play that well with your third string rookie guy who really hasn't looked great when he's been out there. I thought they should be pretty happy about the performance.
Oh yeah, especially when he didn't even look good in that game. He only completed 40% of his passes.
Yeah, he was 18 of 45, and he had 2 interceptions that both were pretty bad. And he got sacked 4 times. So the quarterback position was not helping him, and they knew that they couldn't run the ball because they weren't real worried about Skyler beating them with their arm.
No. Josh Allen had a couple interceptions in the game. The running game did not look good. But I think the Bills are, I don't know. The Bills are the Bills. And I like we talked about Cincinnati going up there. It's going to be tough on them. Is there a chink in the Bills' armor right now? Is there a way that we think Cincinnati could go in and take them down maybe?
I don't know, man. I just feel good about the Bills because even when they don't have their best game on offense, Josh Allen can throw a couple picks or whatever. They have a way where they can just win because they're good in all 3 phases. They're good special teams, they're good offense, they're good defense. They're just a really good team all the way around, and that's why they're 13-3. They're 7-1 at home, and if they win this week, they'll be 8-1. And I think they're going to. Because I feel strongly about their ability to score against Cincinnati's defense. Now, Cincinnati's defense has looked pretty good at times, but I just feel good about this Bills team, and I think he'll be a little more careful with the ball. But some of the things that the Dolphins were doing was confusing them, and that should be given some credit to the Dolphins coaching staff. But I'm not down on the Bills at all. I think they'll show up big this weekend.
And then we go to a team we talked about a few minutes ago. The duel I talked about, I was looking forward to this game. The 2 young quarterbacks to see what they could do. I'd hoped for a shootout, but it wasn't the shootout I was hoping for. As the Chargers looked as good as you could look in the first half with Trevor Lawrence throwing it away. And then, as we talked about, the head-scratching second half when they kind of let Jacksonville back in the game, and Jacksonville ran through that door and ran away with it.
Yeah, man, that was pretty crazy. I did not expect them to start off that poorly. I definitely did not. But I kind of felt like they were never really out of it. I just, as we mentioned earlier, they should have gotten touchdowns on a lot of those instances where they got the ball handed to them right inside the 30. They just didn't capitalize, and then they just refused to run the ball in the second half. They did everything they could possibly do to give that game away, and I kind of felt it coming for some reason. So I don't know. I just don't understand why Brandon Staley keeps getting second chances when he's definitely made some big time mistakes.
And let's talk about the other side of the field. I mean, it's got to be really impressive for a young quarterback. I know he had multiple. He was high school. He was the best player in the country. In college, he had so much success at Clemson. He's been in big games his whole life, but this is as big a game as he can be in, and to play as bad as he did the first half and still have the confidence and the maturity to run the game in the second half and come out and lead them to a victory speaks volumes about Trevor Lawrence and what he can be as he grows up in this league.
Yeah, man, I've never doubted him or been worrying about his abilities. This guy was one of the best college quarterbacks I've ever seen. He was one of the best high school quarterbacks ever, and I never really worried about him. I mean, his only issue last year was he was on the Jaguars. Yeah, he looked rough at times and didn't, play great, but look who he had around him. I mean, this year, all they got him was a couple of guys that really have never been number one guys elsewhere. Marvin Jones Jr., Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. I mean, a lot of people laughed about that signing of Christian Kirk getting $83 million. Well, he had over 1,000 yards and almost double-digit touchdowns. So everyone now is like, damn, that's a pretty good deal. Also, Evan Ingram, the Giants really didn't even want this guy, and he goes down there and balls out. Well, I think that's because they have a really, really good quarterback who figured out the nuances of the pro game, the differences, the quickness of the secondary, all that stuff he figured out in year two, which most guys, start to come around. He's just coming around faster than others. And, I'll give credit where it's due also. Peterson's done a pretty good job. I mean, he didn't have three hands tied behind his back like Urban Meyer did, but they got a little bit better players, and there has been better coaching. So, and Trevor Lawrence is better. So it goes all the way around. But the biggest thing to me is they got talent this year. Travis Etienne didn't play at all last year. Getting him was like getting an extra draft pick. And like I said, they brought those other guys in who have really, helped Trevor excel. And then the defense has grown up, man. Josh Allen is a force at defensive end. And I like their linebackers too. And the secondary, Rayshon Jenkins, getting him as a free agent was a hell of a move. He's been better for the Jags than he was previously.
And the other thing, back to Trevor Lawrence, is, I remember reading John Madden's first book, and he talked about, the toughest quarterbacks he played against, and he used Terry Bradshaw and Joe Namath as examples. And he talked about a quarterback who can come back after playing so bad and still be competitive in the fourth quarter and win you a game are the most dangerous quarterbacks around. And that's what Trevor Lawrence showed you that day is, with him on the field, you're never really out of it.
Hey, you know what, man? A lot of guys can't do that. They cannot throw 4 interceptions and then come back in the second half and look amazing. He completely wiped that from his mind and went 150% forward, and that's hard to do. So not a lot of people can do that.
No, most of them just would have been ruined. They would have been like, Zach Wilson would have made it 8 interceptions.
Yeah.
Not 9.
No doubt.
And let's go to the first game. The Niners, the legend of that pretty good quarterback out there, keeps growing. But the first half, Seattle gave what they can. Where did you see the change in the second half?
I just think they started playing better as a whole. I mean, this is a team that traditionally has been kind of a second half team. It was tight at halftime, but honestly, it was 17-16, and I didn't feel like the Niners had even started to play really yet. And then they just poured it on in the fourth quarter. I keep waiting for Brock Purdy to have a bad game.
Yeah.
I keep waiting for him to have like a 7th round draft pick, 3rd string quarterback kind of game. like Mike White did. Mike White would have these games and look amazing, and then like the next week he'd look horrible. And I keep waiting for Brock Purdy to have one of those, but yet it has not happened yet.
No.
And I don't know if it's going to happen. I mean, I thought this guy I thought he should have been drafted higher. And I thought he could be a project guy that could be good for somebody a couple of years. Did I think he was going to come in having not played ever and look like this? Hell no. But I thought he was a pretty good quarterback and could be molded into one. But, man, Christian McCaffrey, 15 carries, 119 yards. I mean, this dude is legit. And this was the perfect spot for Christian McCaffrey to go. And, Deebo Samuel on the outside making plays. He doesn't have to run the ball every time now because they've got Christian McCaffrey, and Elijah Mitchell, should be getting healthier. So this team is dangerous because their offense has some good weapons, and then that defense is so nasty.
Well, yeah, and then we didn't even get the Kittles and Ayuk. I mean, it's like, I mean, it's almost reminiscent of the Bill Walsh offenses of the 80s when you had Roger Craig. Yeah, Joe Montana, you give it to Roger Craig, you throw it to Jerry Rice, you throw it to Taylor, you throw it to the tight end, whoever.
Jones, yeah.
Rathman.
And I like, speaking of Rathman, they got Kyle Juszczyk, who I think is one of the best.
We didn't even talk about him.
Yeah, he's one of the best utility players in the entire league. And their third wide receiver, Juwan Jennings from here in Tennessee, he's a good player too. I mean, he's a good downfield blocker. As a wideout, lots of wideouts don't want to get in there and rough up people blocking, but he'll do it. He's a big guy. He's a good athlete. Used to be a quarterback in high school, and he can catch the ball when they need a big play. He'll get first downs. He'll make some touchdowns. He had 2 catches for 41 yards and did good blocking. And then, man, like we said, this defense. I mean, I don't even know. Obviously, Nick Bosa is probably the best, but I can't even give you a ranking of these guys because there's so many breakout big time players on this defense. It's unbelievable. Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner are the best linebacker combination in the league, in my opinion. And Nick Bosa is just a badass.
And the funniest thing is you think about it is like on Sunday or on this weekend, I shouldn't say Sunday, Skylar Thompson was picked 7 spots in front of Brock Purdy in the draft, and these guys are playing in the playoffs. So pretty good. I mean, Skylar was there because there was nobody else, but I mean, Brock Purdy, man. And like I said, you and I were big on him in Iowa State. The only thing we were disappointed he didn't show up his senior year, but I mean, he showed at Iowa State. He had some quarterbacking in him. He had some games. So
they won some big time games, especially that sophomore season when they knocked off a bunch of really good teams and took Iowa State to places they haven't been ever, or at least in a long time. And I liked him, and I didn't think when teams lose, the quarterback gets all the blame. When they win, he gets all the credit. And they had some rough games. They went 5-7 when they expected to be better, and then he kind of got all the blame. But some of the executives still liked what they saw from him. He's not a dude that's going to wow you at the combine, but he can play football, and he's played a lot of games. I mean, he's played 48 games in college. So,
well, yeah, and there's guys that Joe Montana didn't have an arm. Okay, 4 Super Bowls later, that arm didn't hurt him. Tom Brady had no athleticism. 6 Super Bowls later, that didn't seem to hurt him. So sometimes the combine doesn't show you the whole game. Let's get into games on Sunday. How we look at these. We'll start out with the first game, or Saturday, we should say. First game, Kansas City against the Jaguars. The odds makers are 8.5, 9 points.
That sounded right. Let me double check. I believe now it moved a little bit. They got Kansas City 8.5. 52.5 is the over.
All right, going into Kansas City, all the experience in the world right now, Kansas City is on the verge of becoming, even though they're not winning the Super Bowls per se, but they're on a Patriot-like run as far as playoffs come. And I heard a stat that Patrick Mahomes has never played a road playoff game in his career.
I don't think so. It's pretty crazy, man. That's the kind of, they've won 6 straight.
Yeah.
AFC West titles, six
Yeah.
straight. And this is a good division, man. It's not like these teams have all sucked out there. The Chargers have been good. The Broncos have had some decent teams. The Raiders, even the Raiders were good last year. So they've got a really good division, yet they continue to win it.
So what's your feeling about this game?
I like the Chiefs in this one. I mean, I think the Jaguars are definitely getting better. As I said, they improved their roster. This quarterback is damn good. He's going to be even better. But I feel like they had to use a lot of gas in that second half last week, and I just feel like they're gonna have a little bit of rust on them coming out there, traveling to Arrowhead, tough place to play, and it's going to be a lot different as far as the opposing team. So I like the Chiefs in this one. To be honest, I don't know if I think they're going to win by 9, but I'd put them at about a 7-point favorite. I think they're going to win 28-21.
I can agree with you. I think it's going to be a closer game. I'm rooting for the Jags in big time, and I'm hoping there's a Waffle House out in Kansas City that Trevor Lawrence's wife can find where they can take the whole team out there afterwards to celebrate. But did you hear about that story?
Yeah, I did actually. I did. I thought that was funny. I'm a big fan of Waffle House down here, buddy.
Best ad for a Waffle House ever. But I'm hoping, I'd love to see a Jaguar or upset. I don't think it's going to happen. I'd love to see it. But the biggest thing about that I'm going to take away from these playoffs going forward towards next year, you look at the Jaguars, they add a few different pieces in there in the division they're in right now with the Colts a mess, the Titans really kind of reeling, and the Texans a mess. There's no reason to think that they can't build this into a Kansas City type run.
You know what, man? I agree with you. I think Tennessee's going the wrong direction. I love the coach there, but I mean, there's no telling where that front office is going to look like and what the quarterback position is going to look like. They don't have receivers. Taylor Lewan keeps getting hurt. He's supposed to be their left tackle. The defense is injured all the time. They've just had a rash of injuries the last few years, and I don't like the moves they made. I mean, they've been getting rid of talent and not replacing it. So I don't feel good about the Titans. I feel even less good about the Colts. They took a good thing and just screwed it all up because, last year they had a good thing going, man. They had a good coach, they had a good running back. The quarterback wasn't great, but he led them to victories. He let the running back do what he did and just kind of did enough. And that wasn't good enough for old Jim Irsay because they had 2 bad games at the end. And now they're just in a disaster. So, I mean, who the hell would want to go coach there? Not me. I'm not real high on the Colts prospects, and then the Texans are the worst franchise in the NFL.
Yeah, you're right. We've covered that at length.
Yeah, you don't need to get my feelings on the Texans. Yeah. It's a freaking joke.
All right, let me go. Let's go. I'm going to leave this one open to you because it's my Giants, and I can't be really fair on this. I did pick them last week to beat the Vikings, so I'll be happy about that. This game scares me, but the things going for you in my head, beating a divisional opponent 3 times, even though it happens more often than they talk about, it is hard to beat a team 3 times in 1 year. But analyze this game for me. Give it to me.
Man, it's all going to come down to what Jalen's shoulders like. If he can run the ball without pain, if he can throw the ball without pain, I think the Eagles win this game just because they've been so good running the football all year long, and then also throwing it off of the run. But it all starts with run the ball. I think Jalen's got to run it. They got to use Miles Sanders. They got to use everybody to get the running game going, and they throw it off the run. It's not just Miles Sanders. They use Kenneth Gainwell. They use Boston Scott.
Oh, don't talk to me about Boston Scott. Don't talk. That's the Giant killer. What does he have, 8 career touchdowns and 6 of them are against the Giants?
He can find the end zone now, and Jalen's a damn good runner too. So, I like that, but it's also going to come down to not only Jalen's health, but Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson's a big part of their offense and what they do. So if he's healthy, and Jalen's healthy, I think the Eagles are probably a little bit better team right now overall. And the magic might die out, but if they're not 100%, both those guys, the Giants definitely have a chance. But let's be honest, the Eagles' defense is a little bit better than the defense they played last week in Minnesota.
The one thing I do like, and like I said when we first came on the air, Dayball, I don't know if it's coming from him, if it's coming from Shane, very understated. The whole Giant thing is very understated this week. There's not anything over the top. Expectations are kept low. It's they're keeping everything close to the best, which I like. It's business as usual, and that's the best way to approach it, especially when you're an underdog like them. So I'm hoping they can pull some magic. If they give me hope late in the game after what they've given me this season as a fan, I'm well happy on what they've done.
Yeah, no, they've definitely played great, and I think they've overachieved this season for sure. And I was very impressed with the way, like I said, the way they came out last week and performed when they could have just been happy being there. But no, they believed they could win, and they executed it perfectly. So I don't think this is going to be an easy game for the Eagles at all. Like I said, I think it's going to be pretty close. I'm expecting more of I'm taking the Giants in the point spread there. I mean, it's 7.5, I believe, the last time I saw.
Right.
And I think it's going to be a 3-4 point game at most. So I'm taking the Giants with the points.
I'll take that for the least. I'd like an upset for the most. I'm fine with that. Now the last game, which of course is they always make it for Dallas, and put them on last. Dallas against San Francisco. We've talked about it a little bit, but let's really get into this game. Brock Purdy. Okay, you got Bosa on one side of the ball. You got Michael Parsons on the other side of the ball. Which defensive player is going to wreak the most havoc, do you think?
I mean, I think Bosa is. I mean, I got to be honest. I believe the Dallas offensive line's just been a little bit banged up. I mean, they've done a pretty good job overall, but they haven't played, a defense like this. I mean, I know they did. I don't think they did. I don't think they played a defense like this, and I just, they've kind of been patchworking it, putting Tyron Smith out at right tackle. They've been playing Jason Peters at left tackle. They kicked Tyler Smith down inside. But, they've got their centers on injured reserve, and, Zach Martin's still playing really good. But I just don't know if Tyron Smith and Tyler Smith, the rookie, can keep up with Nick Bosa. And I'll believe it when I see it. Also, Jason Peters, I mean, he's a Hall of Fame player, but shit, he's 40 years old. Yeah. And he does not move like he used to. And I think they're going to run a lot of Nick Bosa against Jason Peters. Like I said, he does a good job for his age. And, the fact that he's pretty long in the tooth, he's been doing pretty well, but I don't think he can stop Nick Bosa. No one really can. And a lot of guys that are a lot younger and in a lot better shape than Jason Peters have struggled stopping him. And I think nobody's stopped him all year. And it's not just Nick Bosa is the biggest thing. That's who everybody talks about. And don't get me wrong, I said it myself. He's a freaking beast. But it's not just him, man. Eric Armstead is one of the most underrated players in the league. Javon Kinlaw, Ebukam, Kerry Hyder is a good backup. This is a solid front, and a lot of teams have trouble with it. And I think that Dallas might struggle to run the football in this game.
Two very good defensive coordinators dueling in this game too, so it'll be interesting to see who comes up there. What's your pick for this game?
Yeah, I'm definitely taking the 49ers. It's only a 4-point spread, and that sounds about right to me, man. I like that number. Obviously, Vegas knows what they're talking about, and I feel like the Niners are going to win by about 4 or 5 points.
All right, before we get off, because I want to get into what you're going to have on your other show this weekend, but the penalty on Joey Bosa for throwing the helmet, what was your feeling on that one? I forgot to bring that up.
I mean, he looked like an idiot. That probably wasn't the best way to handle it, but that guy was holding all night long. He also was false starting over and over again. I understood why he was upset. I mean, the first step is the most important in this interaction. I mean, it's who has the best first step, who can gain the leverage, who can get outside or inside or whatever it is. And the right tackle was just jumping back, a solid 2 or 3 yards before the ball was snapped. You can't do that. And not only was he doing that, but he was grabbing Joey every time after he false started. So I understood the frustration, but probably wasn't the best way to handle it because it cost him the football game when he gave him a 2-point conversion by allowing him to put the ball at the 1. Would he probably have gone for 2 there anyway? Yeah. But, it would have been
a lot easier.
Yeah, it would have been a lot harder. And so, then the field goal, instead of sending them to overtime, it wins them the game. Now, would they probably have lost in overtime? Yeah. But still, it would have extended the game if he had not done that.
My feeling is sometimes I understand the rules are there for a reason. Sometimes it's, was there any danger by the helmet? Was there any kind of danger brought to it? I mean,
no.
The referees could have turned their back and pretended not to see it.
But they were pissed off because he was yelling at them.
Yeah, I know.
They were watching him like a hawk. I'm not saying it was right, but I'm just saying why they did it, because they were already mad because he was MFing them, and they'd already thrown a flag on him for cussing at him, and then they are watching him pretty close because they wanted to get him again, and he just did. He gave them that opportunity.
Yeah, it's like when remember when I don't know if how much you watched the baseball, but it was like when the baseball umpires started going after the guys jawing at them for called strikes.
Yeah,
and it's like the good umpires would turn their backs, walk away on the other direction, let the guy fume as he goes back to the dugout, not paying attention to it. Then all of a sudden it became confrontational, and I just think at that point in that game, I understand it's a penalty, but it's like just let it go. Let it go. You don't have to call it. There's nobody in danger here. Let him bitch. Let him go over the sideline. Let him get away from you. Because, people are yelling at the refs all night long. If you have deer ears, don't be a referee in the NFL.
No, I agree. I mean, it's kind of a bullshit call when
Brady.
When it's costing him the game. I don't think what he did was bad enough to warrant costing him the game, but that he should have known that guy was not going to let him get away with anything after he already, MF'd him on the field. I
just felt sorry for Joey Bosa.
I did too. I love Joey Bosa, man. I felt horrible for him. It was
just, with all the bitching that Tom Brady does, and not just to rant on Tom Brady, but they don't do anything to him. On every play, he's yelling for a flag. And it's like, come on. Because he's a defensive lineman, he doesn't get what the quarterback gets. Give him something.
They either throw the flag on him for roughing the quarterback, or they throw the flag on him for yelling at the refs. So it's hard to win when you're playing on the edge.
Yeah, exactly. So who do you got this weekend? What do you got?
Got a couple of really good shows coming up. We're going to have in the next 2 shows, we're going to have Devin Jordan, the safety out of Eden Prairie, Minnesota. He's going to go play for Air Force next year. He's a number 14 rated prospect in the state of Minnesota, but he really wanted to be a cadet.
Wow,
he had offers. Yeah, he had offers to go to a bunch of different places, some bigger schools, some Ivy League schools, Army, Navy, Yale, Princeton, Northern Iowa. He had a bunch of pretty good offers, and he really wanted to go out there and be an Air Force cadet. So he's heading out there. He committed on July the 3rd. We're going to have him on his show. His dad is a big friend of the program. He's James's really good buddy, Crawford Jordan, who started at corner for 4 years for the Gophers back in the heyday, late 80s, early 90s. He was a big-time baller there in Minnesota. And we're also going to have former Ohio State great wide receiver, kick returner, and New England Patriot Bam Childress is going to be on the next 2 weeks too. So we got 2 pretty good shows coming up soon.
That says a lot about a kid wanting to go and be in the Air Force. I got to ask him if he wants to fly jets, see if he's going to be up there in the skies.
Yeah, I don't know if he wants to fly or if he wants to be on the ground. I'm not real sure if he wants to be a pilot or not, but I'm telling you, man, this guy is a baller. He's kind of a bigger type safety. I think he's around 6'2", 6'3". He's about 200 pounds, and he played in the Minnesota All-Star game and dominated, had a couple picks, had a couple big hits, and he can come down, play in the box. He can cover. He's got good ball skills.
I think he's going to be a starter eventually. May not start as a freshman, but I do think he's going to get on the field, and he's going to be an impact player for Air Force.
Well, that's good. Yeah, it's good to hear. When they get some good players going to these academies, because they are good stories every year, and they do a good job. Especially, Air Force has had some good years. Army, Navy, maybe not the greatest of years, but they're a fun program to root for. So. All right, my friend. I will see you next week. Let's look forward to the football. Thanks everybody for tuning in tonight, and we will be back next week to talk about what we see this and get ready for the championship weekend.
Yeah, man, it was a really good week of pro football that we got to see in the super wild card round, and I think this week's games are going to be even better. I'm really looking forward to watching the Eagles Giants. I think that's going to be a battle. Third time, like you said, these two teams have played each other. They know each other really well. They know the tendencies, so it's just going to come down to who wants it more.
Primetime Saturday night, I'll be on my couch in front of my TV, just rooting hard for the Big Blue.
Yeah, no doubt. And we were just talking about Air Force. They actually were 10-3 this past year. No one really knew about it for some reason. I don't know why, but they were 10-3. They finished second in the Mountain West, and they won their bowl game, I believe. So Air Force Falcons are looking up and had a really good season. Like I said, they beat Baylor 30-15 in the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl back on December 22. So Air Force should have another good season coming up next year, but this year finished 10-3.
I've never been to an Air Force game. I've been at Annapolis for a game. I've been at West Point, of course. And I got to tell people, if you ever have a chance to go to West Point to a game, the atmosphere, it's worth the price of the ticket alone just to get up there and be surrounded by the history too. And on a fall afternoon, there's nothing better than sitting on the banks of the Hudson watching a football game.
Yeah, Annapolis is a pretty cool place too. So in Colorado Springs, which is where the Air Force Academy is, it's also beautiful right there in the mountains. All three, it's a really cool spot to watch a ball game.
Yeah, so if you're football fans and you're around those guys during the fall, it wouldn't be bad to pick up a ticket and go support those guys, especially those guys who defend our nation as well. So,
no doubt.
Everybody, have a great weekend. We will be back next week. And Nate, enjoy the football.
All right, buddy. Thank you.